Hello, Shirley Adams here with the last program in Series 3 of The Sewing Connection. We're going to elaborate on that little black dress we created last time. That dress was the great basic to wear day and night. Days, I might dress it down with a scarf or whatever the occasion demands. But tonight, we're going to party hardy and pile on the glitz. The added extras might be in the form of a stole. Let's look at that on the model to see how it looks. Right now it's over the same long sleeve black dress, but picture that over a strapless dress, either long or short. We're seeing so much of that stole this year with its tassels on the end, and it's full enough that it can actually keep you warm if you want it to, or maybe it's just going to be a little added extra on top of the dress when you go out for the night on the town. But here's a little bit of what we're doing to make that stole. It's very, very simple. You see it everywhere in the magazines, in the stores, but here's how easy it is to make. As I looked at it several places, I decided, well, all that is a straight piece of fabric probably, so that's how I made mine. I cut a straight piece of fabric, and this was 2.5 yards long. Make it long enough because if it's too small, then it won't gracefully drape over your arms as you wear it. So it must be long enough. So 2.5 yards long, and I don't have room to spread it out, but that's how big it is. And then the width of it, I originally made the width of this fabric, which was 27 inches. This is an imported fabric, and some of those are very, very narrow, and it's very difficult to do anything with them because we're used to the wide fabrics that are commonly seen now. Well, with this one, made 27 inches, I put it all together and put it on and decided, no, that's too unwieldy. So you sometimes have to change dimensions. I cut this, therefore, down to about 21 inches. It's what I believe it is now, and it worked out much better. So don't make it too wide, but it might be a good idea to start with any old fabric you have. Put it around and see how you like it. Well, this is also 2 layers because we're going to see both sides, so you don't want to see the wrong side of a fabric unless it is great fabric. What I used here is some knit on the inside. It's a knit silver lame, and then this is a woven, a heavy satin woven on the outside. And they are simply those 2 pieces of fabric. You put them right sides together, just lay them out flat on a surface, pin the 2 outside edges, the 2 long edges, and just stitch down those, serger or machine, either one, so that the ends are both open. Turn it right side out and press those seams that you just stitched. And then we have to do something with those ends, like gathering them all up. Now this is so heavy that what I used to gather them up was some buttonhole twists. Some very heavy thread of some sort is what I used in the machine to gather it because it will break otherwise. It's really heavy, so make really big stitches and really heavy thread in the top. The bobbin doesn't have to be heavy. And then I gathered it up as tightly as possible, and in addition to this, I had to kind of squish it together and roll it together, and I took some more of this heavy thread and wrapped around it several times and pulled it as tightly as I could and tied a knot so that it's all held here. And then I took a small piece of fabric, and this is, let me measure it on my machine here. It's about 8 inches long and it's about 5 inches wide is what I started out with here. And I put the 2 raw edges, the 2 longer raw edges together and wrapped them all around that raw fabric there. And when I had it all wrapped around, I took a few stitches here and there just to hold it in place, and then I peeled it down over to cover everything so that there are no raw edges. And here's how it looks when it's all peeled down. And then you might take a few more stitches to crunch this together. And then after I crunched it, what I put on the inside was, of course, the tassel that's so popular this year. Have you noticed how fashion and home decorating follow each other? We see tassels on furniture, on draperies, on all sorts of things this year. And in fact, going into a drapery department might be a good place to find the tassel you want. If you can't find the color that you would like to have on your garment, let me show you how to make a tassel because they can be used so many places. The way I've experimented to see what would work, and so this is what I found works well, and this is also what I found to stay away from. Here was a really pretty fine thread. It's a silver thread, and as I wrapped this around, I counted. I actually counted to see how many times it would take to go around this. Here's the little gizmo I used to go around. Just anything you have that's sort of stiff, hard, will do the job. This one I see measures about 4.5 inches is how long I made all my tassels. And I counted as I wrapped this around, and this is 300 times this fine thread is wrapped around. and it doesn't make a really impressive tassel. So what I'm saying is don't use fine thread for this. Use some heavier cord, use something heavier that'll show some impact with a lot less work than this. I would have to probably wrap it around more like 600 or 1,000 times to really make a good fat tassel. Here's one that's only wrapped about 75 or more times, maybe a little bit more, but this one makes a much better tassel. And this one was made with some of this heavier. Candlelight is what this is. It's a heavier metallic yarn. It's one that's usually used in a serger, but there are a lot of serger yarns and threads that might work well for this. So that one works quite well. Ribbon floss is another one that you might use, or any of the kind of heavy cords that you would use on the serger, any of these heavier things. So try any of those that come in the right colors for you. What I decided would work well for this was some of this glittery. It's kind of like the ribbon floss, but it has a little bit of glitter in it. So that's what I've made this tassel out of. And the way you make this is find something to put that spool on so that you can wrap it easily. And I'm putting it on the spool pin on my machine here. I'm just putting it on top there. And to wrap it, you do this just real quickly. And maybe it'll stay there, maybe it won't, if I keep pulling it this way perhaps. But anyway, wrap it real quickly, and you might count how many times so that both tassels turn out exactly the same. And after you have this wrapped around what you figure is enough times, I would guess probably 75, maybe more. But anyway, after you think you have enough, and I'm not going to do that or we could take a whole long time to do it, but after you think you have enough, then tie a knot all around here. Get one thread and tie it around here, and maybe I'll just cut this off and go ahead and tie it. I don't think this is enough, but I'll tie this anyway. I can always embellish it a little bit more later. I can add to it. So I would put this around a couple of times and tie it in a good knot that'll really hold it. Cut off another end also. So if you wrap this around twice, like so, then maybe when you pull this, you won't have to have someone's finger there to hold it. It holds itself. And then do another time, and then we're through with that knot. And then we have to cut it off this little whatever it is that it's on. So notice how I don't have it quite up at the top. I have it down about a ½ inch. Therefore, when I cut, I'll turn it over to the other side, and I'll cut right here about a ½ inch from the edge. And with it cut right here, it is going to just come right off. And when it's off, then I'll hold those original 2 yarns, and I'll wrap another one around here. And with it wrapped around here, I'll go round and round and tie that also. And you can see then that it would be the same as this tassel. I see that my original one is thicker. This isn't quite enough. If you didn't get all that cut just straight, then when you finish it all up and have it all tied and ready to go, give it a slight haircut on the bottom and get it down so that it all looks uniform. But very easy to make these. So if you can't buy one that you like, so what? Make it. Maybe you already have some of these yarns at home that you can do it with and make it very easy. I noticed that you can also buy belts that are made like that with these same cords. And this one I think I bought in a belt department. I didn't make this one, but I did notice as I was buying cords in the fabric shop that I bought a cord that is identical to this one. It's the same type of cord. So it's easily accessible is what I'm saying. Whether you go to a fabric shop, a drapery shop, wherever, you can find this type of thing. So just get out there and look and find something that's perfect for you. Then while I'm looking at cords down here, I see that I also have some cords from fabric shops. But these cords are nice to put through a cording foot or any kind of a foot that you have on your machine that has a hole that goes through it. And I showed you this last week. I already had this threaded through, which is not a problem. But anyway, it's a cord that might work. On black, any of these cords look wonderful. I'll just put this on the machine then and show you how to attach it. I guess I could get this one out of here since I'm through making my tassel. So I'll get this all snapped in place. And then I want to have this thread all wound through here, and then we're ready to go. So I would want my thread supply in front of me, and I've put this through the wrong way when I did it last week without having it on the machine. So I'll just put it through the other way. There we go. It's through, and it's ready to go. So I was trying a little bit, I was experimenting somewhat with these to see what these cords would look like. Now when you stitch heavy cord like this on a piece of fabric, it's going to kind of crunch together. It's going to ripple a little unless you put some stabilizer behind it. So I do have some that you just tear away after you get through sewing. They're on the back side of it. And that way it keeps it stiff, it keeps it firm, and it will work out very easily. So I'll put this down here and see what we can do as far as sewing it. So look through your feet to see if you don't have one. And here again, if you don't, see if there isn't one available. I'm sure there is. What I have is the blind hem stitch here, the one that stitches along and then goes over and keeps coming back. This is a good one to couch cord on like this, and this is what we're doing. We're couching cord. So you can see this really is a simple thing to do. So try it on a little scrap first to become adept at it before you actually do it on your garment. And if you get really good at it, try a little passementerie. This is so popular right now. And this is when it goes around back and forth, weaves all over. This started out way back in the 1890s. If you look at historic costume collections, they are just loaded with this passementerie, and now it's very popular again. So try some of that. Now that would be using the same foot, and you have to just keep turning back and forth, and it does need practice. Don't do it immediately on your garment because you might have a little problem doing that. Well, anything will go through this foot. Any kind of cords, a string of pearls will go through nicely, and you could also stitch on those pearls. So that might be another thought. I have another garment, and let's look at that on the model. And what we see in this garment is that it has some glitter, some sequins around the neck. It might just as easily have pearls or cording around the neck. But this is a good garment to put it on around the neck or through the interior if you want to. And we could just as easily do this with some sort of a foot that works the same way, or we can do it on the serger. This is also a good operation to do on the serger because you can just set it and get the foot that works out well to go over pearls or sequins on the serger. So another good thing to do with the decorative strings, beads that you can find in the store. This is also a nice top. It's borrowed from a friend, by the way. It isn't even mine. I have neat friends who, when they hear I'm doing something, say, "Oh, would you like to use this or that?" Sure, I would. It's always nice to be able to borrow something. Well, this one, notice that she has underlined it. It is just a gossamer fabric. It is just really lightweight, and because of that, she's underlined it. So remember, anytime you have really lightweight, so that there won't be any strain on it, it's a good thing to put all the weight on an underlining and put all the construction details on that. So, nice little jacket. Another one that goes over that black dress very easily. Another one that I have hanging here on the rack, and we aren't going to put it on the model because it has short sleeves, and it isn't going to look too wonderful over that long sleeve dress, so we aren't even going to have it modeled. This is one that you would instead wear over maybe a black skirt. A black velvet skirt would look wonderful with it. It would also look good over pants. Anything, it just needs something black. Right now it's with a black velvet skirt. And this is just a wonderful top. There are so many of these in the fabric shops. If you looked at the prices of these in the ready-to-wear, you'll go back to the fabric shop and look at it again to think that, yes, I really can make that. And even though you think it looks very difficult, realize that even though this used to be mostly in metallics, right now most of these sequin things are plastic, so you can stitch right through them very easily. It isn't going to be any kind of a strain at all. But what I wanted to show you about this is something very clever that the same friend did, and it's over here. And while we're here, by the way, let's just look at the seams first and look at the back side of the fabric to see how it is. You can see through this fabric because it's a very fine mesh. It's a real thin mesh, and you can see through that fabric how all the zigzag, all the flame stitch sort of design is done in the sequins. But notice also what she did about the seams here. In case you think you have to have something very special to sew this together with, it's difficult to see, I realize, since it's all so dark, but it is a simple zigzag stitch done on the machine. So you can do that very easily. There's a straight stitch first here to sew it together, and then she went back and did a zigzag afterwards to hold the edges together. It's very simple. This isn't going to take you days and weeks and months to do. It's going to take you a very, very short time. You, for something like this, want, of course, as simple as possible, so don't get anything with detail. This is just a simple t-shirt pattern is what you could use here. Leave the sleeves out, it's just cap sleeved, and that easily. All you'd have in this is shoulder seams and side seams, and then you'd have to finish the neck, the arms, eyes, and the bottom. What she has done to finish the neck is something wonderful. She's finished all the edges there. Wonderful in that it's so easy. Everybody can do this very simply. She has just taken some of this fusible tricot, this interfacing. She's taken it in black here, but I'm holding it in white. She has taken some of this. She has put it on the right side of the garment with the smooth side of the interfacing against the right side of the sequins. Put those two together. Go ahead and stitch around the raw edge, and then she has put this to the back side. And after it's here on the back, she has simply fused it with her iron. So it holds down very easily. There's no other stitching, so there's no reason to really work hard at this. You can do it very, very simply. The same thing has been done then on the arms, eyes. So there again, you just fuse that down in place. Now the fact that I said a lot of these are plastic instead of metal, do try it on a scrap first to make sure that you're not going to melt it when you fuse this down in place. See if you need to do it with a press cloth or see if you can put the iron directly on it. Be very careful, and by all means do it on a scrap, because you don't know what you're working with until you actually try it out. And we don't want any horrible mishaps on a gorgeous top like this. Then look what she's done on the bottom. The same thing really, but because of this flame stitch that's there, I said you could see through this very easily, and you can see through it. So because of that, even though she had, when she started out doing this, the right sides of the fabric together, she turned it over to work from the back side so that she could work right along that flame design that goes up and down, that zigzag design. So she could do a really accurate job that way. After she had that all stitched, she then could just cut off close to the interfacing. And at every point, both below and up above here, at every point, make a clip so that you get right to your stitching line so that it turns smoothly and very nicely to the back side so that you get sharp points. And it's that simple. I would guess that she did this in a small part of an evening or afternoon or whenever, so it really didn't take much time at all. Very nice. So try those out. If you've looked at these in the ready-to-wear shops and think, gee, I'd really like to have one of those, this is a good time because the fabric shops are loaded with them in all colors and all sorts of designs, and the price compared to the ready-to-wear price is just really astonishing, really wonderful. Another good reason why we sew, because we get all those great things in the fabric shops. Let's look at the model again and see what some of the other additions are that you might be able to make. All of these are going to be just belts. But just to go from the office out to a night on the town, let's think of some of the terrific belts that you can make to put on to give it a festive evening look. This first one that she has on is done with some machine embroidery. This is metallic thread that's threaded through the machine. It's a combination of gold and silver, and you don't have to have an artistic eye at all to do this. It is simply following the pattern in the fabric that's there. It's a kind of a damask fabric, and it's simply following that along. Anybody can do that. Now let's put on another one, and with this one, it's first of all a quilted belt and used in the top stitching of that of the machine with some metallic thread. So it's just a nice little quilted pattern that goes around back and forth. And after that belt is all quilted, then by hand those beads are applied, or you could glue them on because there are a whole lot of good fabric glues right now on the market. You might just glue them on instead of stitching them on. I started to stitch these on, and this was about one movie's worth of stitching. I would advise you, if you're going to do that, to start in the middle and work out away from the middle, because if you start at one end and wait till you get to the other end so that you can wear it when it's finished, you may never wear that belt. But if you start in the middle and whatever you finish then, fine, it's wearable, and just keep working out from the center out to the edges, and then you always have something to wear that keeps becoming more elaborate every time you work on it. Here's one that required very, very little work. It was made in minutes because this diamond shape, the Harlequin pattern, was just a fabric. Buy 1/8 of a yard of that fabric, cover the belt with it, and then I bought to put in the center of it. In the same shop, I found that applique that was a black sequined applique that looked just like the Harlequin fabric. It looked like they were calling to each other. So this was done in a matter of minutes. Very quick, very easy. Here's another one, and this one is with just sort of patchwork. One fabric put on top of another, on top of another. It's all done in silvers and blacks, but gives another nice look. Just quickly whip it out of your office desk and put it on, and you're ready for that evening out for dinner, whatever it is. Here's one that I showed on my first series, How to Make It. It's in gold, and it's a nice soft lame. It's a knit lame. I think it took about 10 minutes to make it, is what I told you on that show when I did it, and that's exactly what it does take. A very quick one, but another one that you can really wear day or night, but it makes a nice little addition. Another one here that's made with a little bit of glittery fabric and a little glittery applique in the middle, but you get the idea. Any of these can be made easily, and it's something you might want to try and see what you can do with it. Now here's a top that I showed on Series 2, and this was one of about 6 things that were all made from the same pattern, but this was the evening version of it, a glittery one. It's either an overblouse or a jacket, and the only thing that's different about this, actually it's that same lame fabric that you just saw a couple of belts ago, but this one in sort of a reptile instead of just a smooth one. The only thing that's different about this, and I won't show you how to do it because I showed you about 2 or 3 programs ago, is the piping that goes around the edge here, and that piping, I showed you how to do it on a pillow, so we won't go into that again. But another fun top to just put over any black dress to turn it into evening. And then I'm going to show you one back here, and on this one we have those same tassels that I just showed you how to make, and these you can make very easily, very quickly. Gives them a nice little bounce here, but because tassels are on just everything, this is a good place to put them. This is another Oriental fabric. We're seeing so many kind of opulent fabrics this year, but they're great for evening. And with this one, what I wanted to show you, for one thing, it is piped. But for another thing, I had to do some thinking about what I'm going to put inside this jacket. Now, what I decided to put inside it was, I tried a couple of different things. It was this fabric. It had to have some reinforcement behind it because it needed something if I'm going to make a jacket out of it. It wasn't heavy enough. If this fabric looks like it's a little bit old, it is. I have had this for since before a lot of you were born. I have had this fabric, and I've been wondering all these years what to do with it. Well, finally, a jacket. This is the year for jackets, so it was just the perfect thing. But I did have to beef it up with a little bit of fusible interfacing, or use sew-in if you prefer. I decide, because it did have a few of these bright birds here and there, let's just do a really bright, flashy lining in it too. And then what you want to think about on something like this, not only the fun lining, but also where are you going to fasten it if it's going to be a fastened jacket. I chose to put these snaps under little designs so that if I did have to catch through to the outside fabric, which I did, it wouldn't show at all. My little dimples, my thread dimples where I stitched the snaps wouldn't show because they were all right on a design, and this is a good way to do it. In a smooth satin fabric, you'd have a problem concealing it, and then this little tassel just ties here. What I really regret is that there are so many things that we can do is that we don't have about 10 hours to show how to do all those things. For instance, I would like to show you a jacket that's made instead of out of these fabrics that you'd expect to put in jackets. I'd like to show you one that's made in lace. I think I'll do that another time, but not today. Maybe this jacket would just have a border of some sort of solid fabric, but a jacket in either colored lace or metallic lace would look terrific over the black dress. Or what about a velvet jacket that's lined with something really pretty, something really shiny, like the satin that's inside it? This jacket with its lining would be terrific to turn that dress into evening and give it a festive look. We might even do a little machine stitching on this to do some embroidery with the pretty glossy threads. I might just show you how that works out another time when I get the jacket all finished. And then what I have here last, I still haven't made this fabric up. You have seen this fabric through Series 1 and Series 2 and Series 3, and I still haven't made it up. I've got to do something about that because this is just a fabric that I adore. I found the perfect buttons for it. It's ready to go. All I have to do is make up my mind what to do. I'm also going to have to make up my mind which side to use because both sides are wonderful. But I'm afraid I can't tell you now because my time is up for Series 3, they tell me, and there's still so much fun sewing to do. I didn't get up the nerve still to cut into this expensive fabric, and we didn't play with a lot of the embellishments I want to, that I have in progress. And we didn't even touch the new wonderful microfibers that I've got to tell you about and show you how to work with them. And we just barely glossed over children's clothes. Ah well, the obvious answer is Series 4. So check with your station for time and day, and I'll really look forward to seeing you again. Until then, Shirley Adams here to remind you that when you sew, you can have anything you want on your terms. Sewing is your connection with the world of fashion. Enjoy.